Welcome to Retin Up. I'm Scott Krzywonos.
And I'm John Kitchens.
John, we are coming to you with breaking news this weekend. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved Lytenava. It is the first and only FDA-approved ophthalmic formulation of bevacizumab for the treatment of wet AMD in the United States. It took us a little while to get here. Outlook first submitted a BLA in 2022. They got a complete response letter, a CRL, August of 2023, which meant no go. They resubmitted then in February 2025. They got another complete response letter in December of that year. Outlook resubmitted again last month, June of 2026. That brings us here today with the approval of Lytenava. John, really broad strokes. How big a deal is this and what does this mean?
Well, yeah, Scott, it's a great question. And I don't know if we're going to have clarity on that anytime soon. I mean, first, on the upside of this, we're going to have access now to a manufactured, prepared for the eye, pre-filled syringe of bevacizumab. And we've never had that. We've depended on compounded bevacizumab for years. So to have a product that's tested and made specifically to be used in the eye is going to be a good thing. I think what we don't know is what's going to be the impact on compounded, bevacizumab. Is it going to affect the regulators, or the regulators going to say now that we have a manufactured for the eye drug, it can't be compounded anymore, or the compounding pharmacist's going to look and say, hey, listen, we don't want to take the risk of compounding this affordable treatment for our patients. As you know, it's only treated, and you mentioned only approved for wet AMD. There's a lot of patients we use bevacizumab for that aren't wet AMD. And so having access to something for those patients, I think, is still going to be very critical. And bevacizumab is very high up on many insurance companies' tiered therapy lists. And so, how does this disrupt that? Does it stay at that high level, and do the insurance companies now allow us to use an approved bevacizumab, even though it's potentially going to have a higher cost associated with it? Does it move it further down on the tiered therapy levels and move up other drugs? There's just a lot of things that we haven't yet seen and don't know really how to factor into the equation.
John, let's just back up for a second, because we know that some of our audience are trainees, or they're, maybe just getting into a retina fellowship. Can you talk to me about what tiered therapy is and where compounded Avastin fits in there, and what compounded Avastin is versus the on-label drugs that are available to retina specialists?
Yeah, Scott, great question. So when we're talking about tiered therapies, this is something that insurance companies put in place, and it can be managed Medicare, it can be private insurance, where essentially you have to use certain drugs first and demonstrate that the patient hasn't responded the way that you wanted them to respond, either with greater durability or greater drying effect. And because of the affordability issue, many of these insurance companies have put at least 1, 3, or sometimes more bevacizumab injections at the first line of that tiered therapy. So you have to give so many bevacizumab injections, demonstrate that the patient's not fully responded. Then you can switch to one of the branded or on-label treatment options, such as aflibercept or aflibercept HD or faricimab and whatnot. And they really do this for cost-saving purposes. With our patients, in many cases, Medicare patients or managed Medicare patients are going to have some sort of copay associated with their treatment and the drug with their treatment. And so they're going to pay upwards of sometimes 20% if they have traditional Medicare and no supplemental insurance. And so a drug that costs $1,000 is going to cost the patient at least $200 out of pocket just for the drug costs. So going from a $50 drug to a potentially $800 drug could have an impact on this entire system and the cost of the system.
Yeah, I guess that all remains to be seen. We're going to see how some of this susses out. A few important details here. The first one is, like you said, this is only approved for wet AMD. This is also the case in Germany and in the UK, where this was approved last summer, June of 2025. Again, only for wet AMD. So Europe, some parts of Europe, have a little bit of a head start on this, which might guide how US providers use it. And then second, this is not a biosimilar. We're in the age of biosimilars. We just had a whole episode about what a biosimilar is. This is not that. This is an FDA-approved ophthalmic formulation of bevacizumab. And I think that distinction is going to become important, because a lot of people have kind of offhand called this an Avastin biosimilar, which it is not. That does have implications for where it falls in that tiered therapy. John, when do you think this hits the streets? When does this start making a difference in clinics, and when do doctors have to start interacting with it?
Yeah, so talking to the folks at Outlook, it sounds like they're going to be very measured with their launch of this. I think they want to figure out good pricing. They want to get feedback from the retina community. I think they're going to be very slow on rolling this out, making sure that they have all of the necessary services available to retina specialists, and those would potentially include samples, charity care drug for patients, and
Sure.
and even a sales force, which I'm not sure if they have a sales force or not, but they're potentially going to need something like that to launch drug properly here in the States.
Yeah, that's a good point. So on Thursday, we're going to be speaking with Bob Jahr. He's the CEO at Outlook Therapeutics. What are you hoping to hear from him during that interview?
Yeah, boy, it'll be great. I think it's gonna be one of the first interviews that Bob has since the approval. He's a relatively new CEO for Outlook. I'd want to get some information and feedback on what their rollout looks like, what the timing of a potential launch could be, what kind of things they're going to have in place to help support us and support our patients, and then just to get his comments around, what their thoughts are or their outlook is on compounded Avastin, and are they going to do anything to impede access to that?
All right. Well, we will find out this coming Thursday when we speak with Bob Jahr, the CEO of Outlook Therapeutics. Until then, be sure that you're subscribed to the show so that you get it in your podcast feed. That's all from us. Thanks for listening. As supported with advertising. Laura Brown is our production and marketing lead, and Liz Hogan is the head of business development. If you're interested in advertising on Retina, have a question for the mailbag, or just have a topic you'd like us to cover, send an email to info@retinup.com. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit retinup.com to sign up for our newsletter so you never miss an episode. Like and subscribe to the show whether you're on YouTube or a podcast streamer. Leave us a review if you're feeling generous. And if you like the show or if you found this episode useful, pass it along to a colleague. That really helps us expand our audience. We'll be back next time with a fresh perspective on what's happening in Retina.